this meeting to order. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Mayor, I had one addition to the agenda. We'd like to add acknowledgement of a vacancy on the city council. We'd like to put that at action items Hetty, what number was that again?
Well, we'll put to J, excuse me, and then we'll make J and go to K.
Okay.
Anything else?
No.
All right, can I get a motion to approve?
So move.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Open forum. Would anybody like to approach? All right.
There it was.
Name, date of birth, everything, you know how it goes, right? Yep.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight at the meeting. I'll try to be brief, assuming I have 3 minutes.
I'll give you 3.
My name is Bob Nicholas. I live at 322 Country Club Road Southwest in Melrose. I come to you with 2 reasons tonight. The first is to thank the citizens of Melrose and the surrounding areas for their generous support during my run for Stearns County Sheriff. As you know, I came up a little short during the primary, but all is not lost, and I live to fight another day. The second is to tell you a little bit about what I learned during my run for sheriff. During the campaign, I spoke with many people about their thoughts, expectations, and what they felt the future of the sheriff's office should look like. Many of these conversations took place after one of the 18 parades I walked in, or possibly while I was placing one of the 250 yard signs out there scattered across Stearns County, which, by the way, I'm still looking to get picked up, so if you guys extra time, feel free. I took these comments, concerns, and suggestions and formulated solutions and ideas for how I would run the sheriff's office should I be elected. I shared them where I could and when I could to those who would listen. Just prior to the primary election, I, along with other candidates, attended 4 open public forums. These forums gave us the opportunity to share our thoughts and vision for the future of the sheriff's office. What it also did was allow each candidate to get a feel for what the other ones were thinking. What I quickly realized was that it was Dave Ventrude's views, ideas, and vision that I was most closely aligned with. At one of the forums, Dave commented that each of us could probably answer the questions posed to the other candidates by heart because we'd come to know each other so well. I found this to be a very true and telling statement. Through it all, and at the end of the campaign, it was obvious. Dave Ventrude's ideas, thoughts, and solutions were best for Stearns County. Dave Ventrude is the obvious choice for the next sheriff. Because my time is limited, I want Chief Ventrude to be able to share his ideas and views himself, so I'll end here. With that said, I am endorsing Chief Dave Ventrude for Stearns County Sheriff. I ask that those who supported me and my campaign for sheriff now support Dave in his campaign for Stearns County Sheriff, as he is who I believe the person to make the best sheriff for the citizens of Stearns County. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob, for those kind of words. Mayor, member of the councils, very, very large group. This is amazing. It's great to see all of you, and I thank you for the opportunity to stop in. And I will try to be brief as well. I just wanted to give you a little bit of background, though, about me, so you kind of get to know who I am and how I got to this point. I grew up in Glenwood, not all that far away, and back in the day, played a lot of sports, and we were in conference with Melrose back then. So Glenwood, and I got to know Melrose, Sauk Center, Albany pretty well. I spent the first 16 years of my career with the St. Cloud Police Department, and we were housed together with the Stearns County Sheriff's Office. So I worked, that's where I first got to know Bob. I worked with civil process, took a lot of people to jail, worked with the county investigators as well as patrol. And so I never worked for the county, but I certainly have worked with the county over many years. The last 10 years I've been police chief in Wake Park. And so I bring a strong desire as sheriff to bring a more collaborative, a more connected partnership with the local police agencies that serve within Stearns County, because I believe that by working together, police, fire, emergency management, EMS, that we can be a lot more effective when it comes to public safety and quality of life for Stearns County. There's a couple of key things I just wanted to mention. One of my passions is trying to make some significant improvements in the area of technology. I believe that by using technology more, it can allow us to be more efficient. I would like to create a system where departments within the county, if there's some feature function of technology that would allow their operation, their city to be more efficient, more effective, I would like to have a system that would make that kind of programming available, field-based reporting or something such as that. The ability to dispatch the closest available unit to critical calls or in-progress calls is really important to me as well. And I think that we can, the technology exists that would allow us to do that. More communication. Obviously, Stearns County is a big county, and while I desire to have squads visible, perhaps that is not always possible every day, but at the very least, open up lines of communication, more reporting, letting you know what we're seeing as far as crime trends, crime problems. So more communication with our cities, with our townships about what is occurring. So the combination of squad presence as well as information will hopefully facilitate that communication. You know, when Bob and I started, it seemed like the job was more about law enforcement, but today we're dealing with more complex issues, mental health issues, and police officer deputy response to individuals who are in mental health crisis. We need to develop a better referral network for those who suffer from mental health. Sex trafficking is a problem, not only in the metro area, but also out here. We have young people, young women that are being targeted for trafficking through social media. We need to raise the awareness amongst our young people about that issue and concern. Wake Park, we've kind of taken a lead in the fight against sex trafficking, and as sheriff, I want to continue that fight. School safety is also near and dear to me as well. And I think that we have some schools that don't have a local police agency and therefore don't have a school resource officer program. I'd like to expand that capability. As a former DARE officer myself, and I think that, and also increase coordination, because in the unlikely or unfortunate circumstance of an active threat situation, it's going to be multi-jurisdictional. There needs to be some consistency in how we respond, and there needs to be some coordination, joint training, and those types of things to enhance school safety for our kids. And there's a lot of other things I could talk about. I would really appreciate your support and consideration in November voting. I come from a municipal background. I understand the issues that cities have, and I believe as sheriff, I'm best suited to bring this county public safety together to address the issues that we are all facing together. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. We're on to the consent agenda, approval of the minutes, approval of bills, purchase orders, approval of investments, MMUA safety program contract, resolution appointing election judges, office assistant 2-step increase, a couple three gambling resolutions, and then a pay voucher for First Street Northeast and the Fourth Avenue Northeast Improvement Project. Can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 5, proclamation for Meals on Wheels. I promise I'll make it really short, so you don't have to, stay and listen to us all night long, okay? We did a proclamation for Meals on Wheels. First off, I just want to say thank you very much for what you do for our community, helping the people out. There's so much, people are so busy nowadays, it's hard to find volunteers, like for me being on the fire department, it's tough to find people to help, and here you are giving of your times, talents. And this little bit of a recognition, hopefully, it spreads the word forth for more people to come and volunteer, because I suppose you guys are probably short-staffed once in a while, or running here and there, people go on vacations, or, need help. So, just want to make sure that you guys are all recognized for what you do, and, thank you for what you do for the community. So, just a little proclamation, whereas Meals on Wheels has guided by a single goal since first known U.S. delivery by a small group of Philadelphia citizens in 1954 to support our senior neighbors, to extend their independence, and whereas what started as a compassionate idea has grown into one of the largest and most effective social movements in America, and whereas Meals on Wheels is currently helping nearly 2.4 million seniors annually in virtually every community in our country, and whereas the Melrose route began back in 1997 and has been serving the community for well over 30 years, and whereas every one of the volunteers at one time or another has went above and beyond. For that, we are truly grateful for your service. Therefore, I, Joe Finken, Mayor of the City of Melrose, Stearns County, Minnesota, do hereby proclaim the week of September 16th through the 22nd, 2018 as Meals on Wheels Week. One other thing I just wanted to let people know is some of you people that are here tonight, Delbert and Marion Williams, since 1997, you've been doing this. So you've been doing it a long time. And you're continuing, through the Catholic Charity, started back in 2004. Marianne Primus, 1997, and she retired in 2018. Lorraine Kudo, 2004. Mary Jane Mittendorf, 2004. Elmer and Virginia Meyer, 2007. Dennis and Emily Schneider, October 1998 for New Munich, Meyer Grove, Greenwald, and the Melrose routes. Rich and Charlene Van Trail, 2014. George and Diane Jensen, 2014. Judy Klimke, 2017. Marcella Hollerman, 2014. George Traeger, 2014, during the summer months. Art and Rita Tearaway, 2015, for the winter months for George. Mickey Clausen, 2016. Jeanette Wessendorf started 6 months ago here in 2018. Beth Nelson started in fall of 2017. Then some of your retired volunteers, Kitty Mueller, 2004 to 2014. Carol Pullman, 2015. Irma Kettler, 2014. Bert Kaspers, 2014. Dorothy Schneider, 2014. Rosie Punsack, 2014. And then some of your deceased volunteers, Les Scholzenberg, Iris Hiltner, Del Gieske, and Bonnie Hughes. You have a lot of talented people
Absolutely.
with your organization that have done a lot
We are
to make,
honored to have each and every one.
yeah, have made a big difference in our community. So I just want to, we give you a round of applause for all you do for our community. There is a grab bag for on your way out. Huh? All right.
We figured as a, knowing the clientele that you support and what you all like to do, as well as we like to do, is we like to drink a lot of coffee, so we made sure that everybody had their own coffee cup with the City of Melrose on it, and most importantly, from the Melrose Public Utilities Commission, to keep your lights on at night, here's a free light bulb as well.
Yeah, I made sure they put a candy bar in each one of them, because you need to be sweet too once in a while, right?
There you go.
Just ask if we could take a picture with all of you, just to have everybody knowing who's all involved in our community. So if you'd like to come up, we'd just like to take a picture.
Maybe to do this best would probably be best to do it right out here in the entryway, just because there's so many people here. If we could just grab that
Yeah.
and have the commission and the council.
And then you can leave after this. You don't have to sit and listen to it.
Sure to grab your cup.
can sit.
It was quite interesting so far.
Don't blame you. Thanks
All
anyway.
right, you can all grab your bags while we go out. All right. Yeah, I did. They put it in there.
I think we just want you all to take a picture.
Take care.
Oh, I think we should have you all in there, don't you think?
Well, I don't know about that.
Maybe I can put you behind my camera so I get a
Oh,
picture.
I can do that.
Hey, Justin. You want
Well, theoretically,
Usually got it there.
You know what, they're here. I will.
And if you need more, yeah, you got a bunch of volunteers.
All right. All right. Where did my, oh, here it is. Why don't we get started? Chief Mouse, you want to give us a police department monthly report?
Good evening, council members and Mr. Mayor. For August 2018 traffic portion, 30 citations were issued, 193 verbal warnings, 2 written warnings were issued. We had 511 calls of request for service in August of this year. Last year was 348. 2017, we ended on ICR 2307, and this year we're at 3523. So about 163 more calls this year than last year, and 1,216 higher this year than we were at that point last year. Just a few things to note. School has started and things have been going well. All the students here have been doing excellent and been amazing drivers, so no issues on my end. Correct? See, look at all those heads nod.
keep it up.
Other than that, nothing major has changed for at least August anyway. Busy last week, but things to pan out, so. Any questions?
Well, thank you, Craig, and I know we've had discussions in the past about mutual aid and stuff like that, but I think it really made a difference this past week, so, and thank you for all that you do, your department. I got to listen to a lot of the chatter on the scanner, and really impressed with what you and your coworkers have done in Sauk Center. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Community Development Director, Lisa?
Good evening. The Planning Commission met on September 10th, and they considered the craft lot rezoning and the city center rezoning and recommended approval of both of those items. They also considered portable storage ordinance and sign ordinance and also recommended approval of those items. The Melrose Area Development Authority met on September 13th regarding Karsten's, regarding a new $400,000 project, and they recommended approval of that. Those items are all on your agenda for this evening. On the October 1st Planning Commission agenda, we anticipate having the St. Mary's conditional use permit, the St. Mary's variance, and some requests related to Ars Auto variance and possibly conditional use permit amendments. And we anticipate in November having the former craft lot comprehensive plan amendment. For building permits, Casey's has submitted their building permit plans. I think that I've heard they're anticipating construction in the spring. Burger King is still waiting for their plumbing reviews, and so they'll probably start their construction, I would guess, within the month. So, is there any questions? Nope. Great.
Thank you. City Attorney report, Scott?
Good evening. On my report, 3 items of note. Still working on the charter cable franchise renewal. Mike and I had another meeting with their representatives and hammered out some language which then we submitted to them, but we discovered that it's kind of like when you go to buy a car. You work with the salesman, but before the deal can be finalized, they got to take it to the back office. So their folks took it to the back office, and we're still waiting to hear from them. Nuisance actions, we're wrapping up one that started earlier this year. Had a hearing a week ago last Monday before Judge Hennessy. Judge Hennessy issued the order as we requested and told the resident that they had to abate their nuisance by September 24th, so this coming Monday. If it's not cleaned up by then, the city then is authorized to enter the property and fix it, and then assess the costs against the property. You'll also note that we've picked up another nuisance. I will note that if you were watching the notice in the paper, we had listed 2 properties. One of those properties took care of their property, got it cleaned up before the hearing, so we just have the one now tonight that we'll be addressing next. Finally, other thing just working on, and this will come up later, is just working with staff. There's some proposed changes to the sign regulations in the city zoning ordinance. Any questions on those? If not, that's all I've got for now.
All right, thank you, Scott. It is 6:25, and we have a public hearing to abate nuisance to City of Melrose Code, Section 93.21.
Yeah, this is the nuisance that we had been discussed. This is at 215 Main Street, the Ritter property. And the police reports and some photographs taken in conjunction with that report were included with the council's agenda materials. We've also got some additional pictures here just to review the situation. Chief Mouse received a complaint and met with Mr. Ritter last July on the 10th and identified what the nuisance problems were and told him to get them corrected. And as part of, it's kind of the standard practice, then after they get that, the property owner gets that notice, they're given 20 days. After 20 days, Chief Mouse follows up, and the items were not corrected, so another letter went out to Mr. Ritter from the chief telling him that he still has some progress had been made, but that there are still violations that had to be corrected and be allowed another 5 days. At the end of those 5 days, the nuisance conditions had not been corrected. At that point, then, this hearing was scheduled, and you would have seen when we published notice of hearing in the Beacon. It was also posted here at City Hall, and then it was also, the notice was personally served on Mr. Ritter. We have to serve anyone with an interest in the property, so we also, their lender, the Freeport State Bank, was also served. So tonight, we're here to request that the council sign the order that is in your package, finding that the conditions are still a nuisance, and ordering that they be abated within 30 days, and that if they're not abated, authorizing me to file another motion with the court to get an order directing that they be cleaned up, or the city will be allowed to clean it up. I'll let Chief Mouse describe what you're seeing here in the pictures, and he's got some ones that were taken just today.
Yep, those are on the tail end of this. So these are basically the photos. We're in the stage 2 of the photos here, but most of the nuisance ordinances are related to vehicles that are not currently licensed or not operable. Some of the stuff in the earlier pictures has been taken care of, scrap metal and whatever else that's been brought where it needs to be, or oil barrels that are temporary usage, kind of thing that have been squared away. So these are the original pictures starting from the beginning back in July. This truck remains. Some of the vehicles have been sold or removed. Basically, we're down to the truck in the initial photo, this van here, as well as the gray pickup with no license plate on the front. Like I said, current license would be needed for them as well as operational, and at least one of those machines is not operational. The other two are operational, just would need current tabs, which has not been completed. And these would be about the middle, using the middle photos roughly August sometime, after date for sure.
All right. This is a public hearing, so people have the right to ask or comment at this time.
And
Unless
just
Scott-
one thing, just to make clear, is that Chief Mouse, like I say, he took some pictures earlier today and confirmed that nothing has changed, or I shouldn't say nothing has changed since August. That the conditions out there are still in violation of the city's ordinance.
I thought he said some of the vehicles have been removed and licensed and some of the stuff has been cleaned up.
So from the August photos, the July photos were the originals, things were taken care of. The August photos then are basically stagnant as of today. One area that maybe we should clarify though is with the commercial properties, we are doing this only on a complaint basis. So we did receive a complaint, and that's where we're working on the commercial properties as opposed to residential, where it's when they're found or when they're brought to our attention, then they're addressed.
Does it take a while to get a license for, if you don't have a title?
That does take some time. If it's off the state's overall normal business that's going on, generally after 7 years, they kind of dump them out of the system and put them in a holding pond kind of thing. So it can take some time, but it's able to be done.
Does anybody in here like to comment? Okay, it is 6:31. And this is closed, and we will be taking action on it here in just a few seconds. On action items, resolution number 2018-44, resolution ordering the abatement of nuisance conditions located at 215 Main Street East, Melrose, Minnesota. Open for discussion.
My question on that, if this goes forward, we approve and take the next step, how long does that next step take? Does the property owner have an opportunity? There's quite a window there yet for him.
Right, so you would allow what's been done in the past is a 30-day window to abate the nuisance. If it doesn't happen from there, I notify Scott that it's not taken care of, and then he's got to get on the court calendar depending on, so those could be whatever the court calendar allows, generally 2 weeks or more before you can get onto the court calendar. So potentially up to 6 to 8 weeks still from today before we'd have a finalized answer. And then the judge
Before
would
the
also
city
give generally a 2-week window to
Get in there and
take care of it.
And I assume all the expenses in that process gets tacked on to property taxes or?
Right.
Okay.
Okay. All right, is there any other discussion? All right, can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
First and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Motion carried. Okay. We're gonna have to change this with our acting mayor.
No, just that's when it actually gets signed, so that's
Okay,
fine.
all right. All right, resolution number 2018-45, a resolution opting to increase the benefit level for firefighters who are vested in the voluntary statewide volunteer firefighter SVF retirement plan. I'll let Chief Buddy take over.
I was going to say good morning, but good evening, Council and Mr. Mayor. Once again, it's that time of the year for us to come forward, and we did analysis, and I believe it was included in your packets with regards to our para program. And just to give you a little bit of a recap, we started this program back in 2012. We had a 5-year lock where we could not make any adjustments to this program at all, and since then that 5 years has lapsed, and now we are on year 2 of analyzing this and looking for an increase. Coming to you guys tonight, recommending an increase to $2,200 per year, and if you look at your analysis, that would put us at 107% funded for this fund. So, meaning that if all current guys and anybody that were able to pull the money out of it, the city would get another 7% above it. So we are fully funded on this program. Last year, when we came up here, it was 108% funded, so we are 1% less. I could have done another analysis to include the $2,300. Would probably put us more at that 100%, 101, but I feel leading the department and keeping both sides even, I feel this 107% is a very comfortable level to make sure that we're comfortable with the city. Just so you guys are aware that this program, I know there's a couple of other para programs that are out there, whether it be on the police union, the city employees. This one stands alone by itself, so the funds are not commingled together with the other ones. This is strictly one for the fire departments. The funding source, just so you guys are aware of how we get the funding from this. The city puts in $8,200. And then there's the 2% state money. And where this 2% state money comes from, it's the tax value on the fire insurance that's paid in our service area. So if we think about this a little bit, any improvements that are done within our area, service area, with tax values, that's going to increase. So be interesting to see what happens at the end of 19 when we have the project on the east end of town. The tax roll is obviously going to be a lot more than what they're paying right now, so we potentially could see a nice increase with that. And then the other source is coming from the investment income. So this is in the stock markets, and it's in the market field. So any investment that would return on the money that we're getting helps fund it as well. So, and I guess I'd like to also add then, being on the positive side of things and on the negative side of things, that once this level is increased, we can't go back. And the other thing is, if it does become a shortfall, then it's up to the city to come up with that little bit. But like I said, right now we're at 107% funded. The markets have been treating us well, and I feel that it's only appropriate that today's firefighters get today's value. Questions?
How many firefighters do we have at present about?
Currently, the roster is at 25%. We can be up to 30 members per our agreement with the council. Would we ever want to go above that? We would have to come to you guys and get your approval. Right now, we all know what volunteerism is like. Very tough to get. If we can say that we have a nice retirement package for these guys, would definitely help recruit more people in.
So you have 25 now, you think?
Yeah, we're at 25. We got, I believe 5 open spots right now.
Okay. And then are you looking to raise that up to 30? Is that the level that ideal level is 30, or?
Ideal level obviously is 30, but we're taking into consideration these guys for bringing them on board. In-town guys working in town during the day, we'd like to see, but the requirements is you need to live within a 5-mile radius of the fire hall.
Tom, while you're up there, I might as well, I had a discussion with you today, and as long as you're up there, I might as well, say my piece, and
Yep.
you can respond to whatever, but, last year, we went and we obviously didn't increase as much as it was requested to increase. And I just want to share with everybody why, the way I look at this, and I think it's fairly logical, but, so the fund is invested in the market, basically. The funds that are there today were created, I believe, after the '07 financial crisis.
A little bit of a disagreement on that, because we carried our funds in from '07. When we had our own funds set aside, we brought those into this market as well. So it's not that it started fresh in 2012. We had our own private retirement fund prior to joining PARA.
Yeah, but the actual investment vehicle, where the money went into?
Yeah,
Were they
the state created, I believe the state created the program right around 2007, I believe, and
I think it's 20 years old.
The actual mutual funds that they're invested in, are they the same ones? They're different.
I'd have to look into that.
The state invests them in
Yes.
whatever funds that they have.
mandated.
My concern is that they haven't been through an economic downturn. The state back in the late 90s, the way they had their retirement program set up, they had a formula that allowed for good increases based on how the funds were performing for retirement. And so they only took into consideration 6 or 7 years of economic. So fund, and they were basing their increases based on 6 or 7 years of economic performance, meaning stock market returns. Well, then you had the 2000 and 2007 stock market corrections, and now 10 years later, after a really robust stock market, the funds are still underfunded by 20%, because the retirees are still drawing, while they were drawing more while during good times. My concern here is that if, let's just say we have a 20% market correction, and I have no idea what these funds are going to do in a 20% stock market correction. If the fund goes down 20%, the projected present assets end of December is $673,000. If you take 20% off of that, you're at $538,000. And I'm not saying it would happen. I don't know how they perform in a downturn, but accrued liability is at the $2,200 level is $627,000. So if you, let's just, for theoretical purposes, say we have a stock market correction, drops 20%, this fund drops 20%, or their funds do. You're at $538,000. So now you're not funded. You're funded at 80% instead of 107%. So now let's say you have a couple of retirees that take 30 years of each, but that actually doesn't really affect it because the other members are still only vested in whatever years they have vested.
That is correct. You got to be 5 years into the program before you get any investment at all. So currently, we're going to be adding about $10,000 into this, or I shouldn't say adding into it. There's 2 guys that aren't going to be able to receive the benefit of about $10,000. So because they didn't make that 5-year commitment, and they got it off. And then there's the percentage going forward. So at 5 years, you're 40% invested. And then it's a percentage going forward until you hit 20 years. So you're not 100% invested in that amount right away at 5 years. You got it. It's a sliding scale.
Right. And that's accounted for in the...
That is accounted for, correct.
So what we see is actually what everybody's invested.
Yep. So if everybody were to leave the fire department today, their percentage of payout would come out of that amount, and the city
They
would
have to
be...
be 50 years old before they can even take it, though.
Correct.
Right. So
But the city would still be at 7% ahead of funds.
Yeah.
So we could wipe out the whole department with the funds, and then we'd still be fully funded.
Right. And my point is, if we have, so obviously not everybody's going to just up and retire. So we have a certain amount of liability there all the time because turnover and stuff like that. If we go to a higher benefit level and lock that in because we can't go back, and we have an economic downturn, the people that retire, so the fund drops basically, but we still have that liability. So we have some retirees, and now we're underfunded. Now, like what happened at the state is, now nobody gets a raise. The fund payouts don't get a raise. So the fireman today that retires gets the $2,200 a year. If we have an economic downturn, there might not be another raise for 10 years. If the fund isn't growing, it's going backwards.
Are we going to move on the what if on everything, or are we going to?
It has to have a medium.
I agree.
Tomorrow, $2,200 tomorrow is not worth as much in 10 years because of inflation. And that's where the battle is how do you make it fair for the firemen today and the firemen for tomorrow?
Correct.
And because firemen tomorrow, they should be getting raises. So, 100%, 107% funded, 112% funded, I don't know what the answer is. Is it 117% funded? Because we're in really good the stock market's performing really well right now.
Correct. And I think that being said, I think we gotta treat the ones that are getting it. It just only makes it fair to kind of try to preserve it for the future firefighters that's just living on the, like I said earlier, the what if.
Well, it's not necessarily what if, because economic downturns, it's a given. They happen. Stock market corrections, if they happen. It's, how do you even that bump out?
Correct.
So,
And my recommendation to you is then to come back every year and present and see where we're at. And maybe it's at 107% funded, is at $2,200. I'm not going to ask for an increase. I'm keeping this under my recommendation to the group would be to keep it around a 107, 108% funded going forward. So I guess that's what we're doing, is we're recommending the council approval to go to $2,200.
So, Mr. Mayor and Council, you have a resolution in front of you. What you can do is just choose the dollar amount. The way it's currently written is as per the recommendation of the chief, but all you would have to do is just change the number, tell us to change the number, and that's what we would change the resolution number to reflect. So,
You know, and my last 2 cents is I do have 20 years in. I could retire tomorrow, but I wouldn't be able to collect for 8 years yet. I don't plan on retiring, but, you know, it's getting tougher and tougher. I mean, we have meetings twice a month. We get paid $10.30 for a meeting. Even if the, meeting takes 6 hours, we only get $10. You know, that's one thing that the other firemen, I'm not in it for the money, but, you know, we gotta find a way to enhance. You're right, we're at 25. We're having a heck of a time finding people. We have to find a way to get, attract people, sort of like the ambulance did. We're trying to attract people, trying to keep them to stay. It's a different thing with the ambulance, but this is the way that I believe, but it's this is a conflict of interest for me, so I'm just giving my opinion as a firefighter.
I did a little bit of due diligence and checked out a couple other departments that kind of relate to there, and I do definitely think that an increase is in order. Just going off of what they are at, we are under. I think if we want to attract new people, I mean, that's what it needs to be. So I'm going to make a motion for the 2,200.
I would, again, it's important to have a fire department and a rescue squad. And I've been in the city for many, many years and appreciate the fact that we have volunteers for this particular organization. I understand money is important as far as the city, the cost of the city. If the market drops, the city has to make up the difference, but it's the members of the city that are benefiting by having the fire department here and having a vibrant fire department that is willing to put in the extra time and so forth. So, that being said, I second that motion.
Okay, there is a motion made and there's a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I abstain. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
no, one more, Chief.
And we're on the action item for the brush rig.
One quick thing on, first, so the effective date on this, are we going to go as of today or tomorrow, or today's date, or?
Yep, I think that's where the resolution is written, is as of September 20th.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
And then I got the next item on the agenda is the fire department's looking for a new brush rig. We've got a 1984 Chevy pickup truck that is starting to nickel and dime us, and we are looking for the council's approval to move forward to go get bids and see what the cost would be to get another brush truck, a replacement one. We did bring this up to our townships at the last township meeting. This one kind of slipped away from us. It should have been replaced probably 20 years, 2004. So I guess I'm just asking for the council for us to go out, seek bids, see what it would cost to put this in here. The fund in our truck replacement is well-funded, and this is set aside into that fund. So until we go any further, you guys will see specs and pricing on what it'd be.
For that truck, would the equipment on the truck be able to put on the old, or would you have to update that all too?
We would look to update it. We have a aluminum or a steel tank on that's leaking, and the pump on there is getting kind of old, so we would seek out for bid and sell that whole thing as one unit, and then probably go with a poly tank so that it holds up a little bit better. And
So is a $40,000 budget, I mean, is that realistic? I mean, I just know what new trucks cost.
well, with the state bid, on the state bid list, it's amazing what kind of a price you can get. I guess I don't want to throw out any numbers because I'm not sure what, it's basically the truck, a tank, and then a pump, and I think the rest of it will carry the tools over and that kind of stuff, so
Okay.
I think the last time we bought a pickup truck, I want to say it was somewhere around the price of $25,000 to $27,000, and that was only maybe 3 years ago. So that state bid list really gets us good pricing.
I mean, it's really stripped down, it's even crank windows.
Yeah.
It's not like the county vehicles, I'm just saying. It's just- Yeah.
Is there such
They
a
got
thing
ratings.
as used rig?
What's that?
Is there such a thing as used rigs at all? At all out there?
We can look, because we look at our pumpers, we look at used rigs. I have submitted to the DNR the last 2 years grant, or I shouldn't even say grant, they have used equipment that they just, for a small fee of like $25 or $40, whatever it is, you can have it. And then they just come in and take an inventory of it every year to make sure you have it. So I've submitted that for the last 2 years. I just submitted this one just about a month ago, hoping to maybe get something from there. And if we can get something from there, then we'll do that, so.
And we did get it one time, that was with one of the
Exactly.
bigger trucks, but it's about the only time we've gotten
Yep.
it, huh?
Yep. So,
All right, provide consideration, develop specifications, see quotes for the replacement of the truck.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Second. Got a first and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Let's see here, D, ordinance number 9-20-18-1, it's an ordinance establishing compensation and reimbursement for expenses for mayor, council, and other boards and commission members. Any questions, or can I get a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Ordinance number 9-20-2018-2, ordinance amending the City of Melrose ordinance number 1989-1-A as amended, adopting by reference as code chapter 153 of the City of Melrose Code Ordinance to rezone Lot 1, Block 1 of Melrose Riverview Edition, former craft lot owned by the City of Melrose.
The application to rezone the craft lot is for the lot right next door to City Hall here. It's at 325 First Street Northeast. And the rezoning is proposed to change from R3 multifamily residential to C5 mixed-use residential. And the primary purpose for that is that the city created a new C5 mixed-use downtown residential ordinance, which would allow first floor residential when not facing the right-of-way or when encompassing less than 15% of the side that might be, or that would be facing the right-of-way. And the Planning Commission considered this at their September 10th meeting and did recommend that the City Council approve the request. The ordinance is included in your packet, and staff also recommends approval.
All right. Any questions? Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Resolution number 9-20-18-3, amending the zoning ordinance 1989-1-A, amending and adopting the reference of Charter 153, City of Melrose, to rezone lots 1, 2, and east 93 feet of Lot 3, Block 43, Township of Melrose, Lot 2 and 3, and 93 of Lot 4, Block 57 of the Clark Addition in Melrose, owned by the City of Melrose, Minnesota.
Thank you. This request is actually to rezone City Hall, the city center. When it was built as a city center, originally it was homes, and the zoning just never really changed. Public uses are permitted in residential, but we just would like to formally rezone it from R1 to public institutional. Also included in this rezoning is Lot 2, Block 1 of the Melrose Riverview Edition. That's a tiny little portion kind of by the next to the dam floodgates between there and kind of the intersection of 5th and 1st. And so that would be rezoned from R3 multifamily residential to P public institutional. The Planning Commission considered this at their September 10th meeting and made a recommendation to the City Council that this be approved. Staff also recommends approval.
All right. Okay, get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. G, sign regulation official title, summary of ordinance.
The Planning Commission has been working on amending the sign ordinance. It started out as just a basic couple of things we were revising, and then the more we kind of revised it, the more we kind of revised it, and it just sort of snowballed into the point where we've pretty much revised most of it. There's a few sections that we haven't revised what actually is regulated. We've just sort of moved it around, so it makes a little more intuitive sense. So the structure is now its purpose, findings, then the application of the regulations and substitution clause, severability, a definition section. We've added a lot of new definitions. The scope kind of indicates what's not regulated as a sign. There's a permit section, an exemption section. Previously, the exemptions were kind of listed throughout the code, and so you'd be reading and it's like, well, this is allowed, but that's not allowed. And it was really difficult to figure out what was or wasn't allowed. We also added a section of prohibited signs. We put all of the signs that were sort of more related to a particular district into a section called district sign regulations. We created a section that pertains to specific types of signs. There's also the billboard overlay district, an administration section, a sign maintenance section, and substitution. I could talk in quite detail, because we've done quite a bit with this. One of the biggest changes is that we added a section on non-conforming, or sorry, not non-conforming, but non-commercial signs. And that basically is the signage that's your philosophical, personal opinions, religious, educational, like supporting the school or supporting your school teams. Any kind of non-commercial message. Political signs are also part of that, but they're subject to a few different regulations from the state level. So prior to a state election, actually we can't limit non-commercial signage by size, but this would pertain to the remainder of the year would be the limitations for non-commercial signage. So there's some general regulations kind of throughout. The non-commercial signs, we have currently 16 square feet of non-commercial signage. That was kind of based off of the political signs previously in our code allowed 16 square feet per property. It's up to the commission, or the council, excuse me, as to whether you want to say 8 square feet per frontage, or 16 square feet per side, per property, or 16 square feet per frontage. So that could mean that a given property might have like 32 square feet if they're a corner lot. But there's basically just lots of little changes throughout the ordinance. Are there any things that you would like me to specifically answer or talk about?
No, I don't.
Okay.
The number of signs during the political election season, because there's a lot of people that like to put, signs out supporting 3 or 4 candidates.
The city cannot regulate signage during the election time.
Right.
So prior to the elections and for a short period after the elections, we can't limit number, we can't limit quantity. We really can't limit anything on non-commercial signs. So that also means we can't limit anything on, regardless of what the message is, because if you're looking at the sign face to see what the message is, then that's a First Amendment issue. And so that was one thing we also had to kind of do some research on. We looked primarily at the City of Alexandria's code. They just adopted a new code March of last year. So they had some pretty relevant, up-to-date information in their code. Following sending out the packet to you, we've had a couple of businesses that have looked at doing some sign changes and new signage. And staff would like just a little bit more time to kind of go through and assess how the new code relates to that and make sure that it doesn't need any final tweaks before we adopt it. So we're recommending that, that you table this and we come back probably next month. I think we can get it turned around in time for next month, but we go back before the Planning Commission, and then come back to you next month. Would that be acceptable?
Sure. It's good for me, good for you guys? All right.
Has there been an issue with the signage before this?
Yes, there actually were. The signage is calculated based on the square footage, and then there's a maximum size. And so the Melrose One Stop in particular, they have a lot of road frontage, but because of our caps on the sizes and the square footage, they're limited by the amount of signage. And so they were wanting to have some additional signage, and that's how we started down this path of amending this. But they're limited, the way the square footage reads is that it has a total amount that's allowed. It also has a total amount per freestanding sign, and it doesn't clearly state whether those two numbers can conflict. And so they had 2 freestanding signs plus wall signs, and so they're at least 2.5 times what there should be by code. And so we knew something was kind of amiss because they don't seem to have a huge amount of signage based on the size of the property. So that was kind of what led to our initially looking at this.
Even if you adopt these new codes, you can still get variations or variances from these?
Yes, you can request variances.
Okay.
So are you saying that I can't have a sign up all year round that, like Tony Clausen for city council year round?
You can, as a non-commercial sign, you can put up any sign you want to because we can't regulate it. I think there's some language that, I think there's just a sentence or two that says that it can't be, do you remember the language? That it can't be, not offensive, but where it's,
When you know it, when you see it.
You know what
yeah.
I'm saying, yeah.
There's a sign, there's one sentence regarding that, but we really tried hard not to regulate content because we didn't want to cross any First Amendment lines.
Okay,
So yes, you would be able to put up a sign like that year-round if you wanted to.
okay. We're good. All right.
Clausen was awesome.
Now what? You want
I'll make a
Yes.
motion to table.
to, okay,
I'll second it.
okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. All right, Stearns County prosecutor agreement, can you get them?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'll just touch on this real quick. We have a 3-year term, 2-year contract with the county attorney. It's worked out fairly well, actually very well is our understanding, between the chief of police and Stearns County. They're actually recommending a $3,000 reduction. So staff is recommending to adopt the proposal as presented.
For like 2 years,
For 2 years, yep.
Nice.
4 years?
All right, can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Can I get a second? All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Resolution number 2018-46, resolution decertifying tax increment financing.
Mr. Mayor, I'll touch on this one. We have a very unique opportunity. We have a local business in the community that is looking to do some substantial improvements to the facility, and they have a couple of unique tools available to them. To access those tools, we're recommending to decertify the tax increment district that supports the area. And then with the proceeds from that tax increment district, we would then turn around and enter into a business subsidy agreement with the property owner as outlined in the terms, which is a 7-year term, which is a forgivable note, which is very similar to a tax increment, the way that would generate. The primary benefit of this is that it's a win-win for all parties. There is the tax rolls gets turned back on. The party gets cash up front versus over a 9-year term. So it'd be staff's recommendation to do two things tonight. One is provide consideration to decertify the TIF district, and then the next action item, which would have to be a motion as well, provide consideration to develop a modified business subsidy agreement and a forgivable loan as terms outlined in the memo authorizing signature. It's not going to change much from the terms, just some legal jargon that would have to go along with that, which they would be in standard language that we would have.
Just thinking, before, we can do the action, provide consideration to decertify the TIF district.
That is, yep.
Do we actually go forward with decertification prior to having another agreement in place?
You can make it contingent on,
Contingent on, because I hate to decertify it and then can't come up with an agreement, and the TIF district gets decertified.
well, in this situation, the TIF district actually as a whole, they would be able to get their full increment from the TIF, the way that it's actually funded right now. And in regards to the additional funds, that would be to pay for that. There's ways to make that work too, so I don't foresee any challenges.
Is there any other reason to keep TIF district in place?
law, we actually have to decertify it because
Oh,
Well, portion of, well, yes and no, yeah. There's some language there, but yeah.
is there another reason to keep it? I mean,
No, and the reason, because we've already passed the 5-year look-back window, so there's no additional things that you can add to it.
somebody else can build something in the
Yep.
district too.
Yep.
So the first is to provide the consideration to decertify the TIF district. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Second part, provide consideration to develop a modified business subsidy agreement and forgivable loan terms as outlined in memo and authorized signature.
I'll make a motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
I was gonna say, we probably should have heard from Carson's Industries before we actually,
We're on board.
all right.
And thank you for your investment in our community. We really appreciate having you here.
It's our understanding, again, as per our conversations, that the best guess would be next spring. Some type of construction would occur next spring, based upon bidding, and I know you guys were trying to get it done sooner based on weather, but,
Sooner, but spring at the latest.
okay,
Everything goes according to plan, I'll reach sooner.
okay,
Crop figure's starting to line a little bit better, so hopefully we'll get it.
okay.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks for coming, for sitting here for an hour and a half, but
All right. All right. Due to Councilmember Josh T. Schaefer relocating outside the city limits, he has submitted his letter of resignation effective immediately. So, can I get a motion to approve his letter of resignation?
And so what we're doing tonight, just to be clear, is that the resolution that is drafted, but not in the file because this occurred today at noon, is that to declare a vacancy on the city council. So that's what you're doing officially. I have a letter from Mr. T. Schaefer stating his resignation from the council because he's moving outside the city limits. And so that's why he's done that, so. And the way state law reads is that you have to make an effort to appoint, and that would be the next conversation that the council would have after declaring this vacancy in regards to what you think would be good terms for an appointment for that position for the remainder of the term. So
Do you talk about that now, or are we talking about that next meeting?
you can do that next meeting if you like.
Okay. All right. We can do that next meeting. Can I get a motion to approve his resignation?
So moved.
Can I get a second?
second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And second part, since Josh was acting mayor to help out with, any conflicts of interest, or if I'm gone, we need to appoint an acting mayor for the last couple months. Since Dick, you're leaving, do you want to play with that role?
I would move to nominate Dick Christensen.
Oh, I can put that on my resume for my next guy.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, old business. Resolution number 2018-47, resolution adopting proposed tax levy, approving the 2018 tax levy collection in 2019.
Yes,
Ms.
good
Tessa.
evening. The goal tonight is to adopt our preliminary tax levy This will go to the county. It has to be submitted no later than September 30th, and then we will meet again in the coming months to finalize that. We are proposing a total tax levy of $1,390,000, which is actually flat from our levy last year. That's comprised of the preliminary property tax levy of $950,000 and our total debt levy of the 2 bonds of $440,000. So our tax rate for 2018 was 69%, and our estimated tax capacity rate would be 66.99. So although the levy is proposed to remain flat, our anticipated tax rate will be decreasing. So we're just looking for action on approving the proposed preliminary tax levy.
What do you think? Good motion, got a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any questions?
No, we can go down yet before, just can't go up.
Correct.
Yes.
We're good.
All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. All right.
And then we're also looking to approve the preliminary 2019 budget along with that.
Can I get a motion to approve?
Motion. Make the motion.
Okay, I got a first, do I got a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Thank you. Resolution number 9-20-2018-5, ordinance amending zoning ordinance number 1989-1-A, amending, adopting, City of Melrose amending Chapter 600, general regulation by addition of Section 613, temporary storage structures. Patty, you're making this too complicated.
All right. Before you tonight, there's a revised ordinance it was set in front of you. This is nothing that's new to any of you. You've all kind of seen this before. The revisions are pretty insignificant. On page 2, item number 6 is kind of the biggest change from the previous version that you saw. The Planning Commission recommended that the C2, I industrial, and I2 districts not have a setback or a maximum number of structures. And that also then takes out the screening aspect of it. And so in kind of reviewing that, staff thought that it would perhaps be best to incorporate a few elements that they would just need to follow, like making sure that it's weather tight and that it's not going to become a hazard, making sure that it's not rented, just some pretty basic stuff. And I did review this with Karsten's, who was one of the 2 businesses that had issues, and they have no issue at all with it now. I also sent a copy of the ordinance to Leadstone as well, and I've not heard anything back from them. But it addressed pretty much all the concerns that they had. So I feel like it's a pretty good compromise from what was what we originally started with and kind of the circuitous route that we came to. If you look at the chart, it's now kind of boiled down to just residential, medical services, and public institution, and then this downtown zoning districts. And one of the council members called me this afternoon and requested that semi-trailers be added to the downtown zoning district. I think they were kind of removed just as a last moment comment at the last council meeting, and he requested that they be allowed in the downtown zoning district so that any current semi-trailers not only would be allowed to continue till the 2020 sunset clause, but at that point they would need to be basically located where they're screened and would be allowed to be a semi-trailer. So that is what is before you tonight. Are there questions?
What was the request for downtown? Would the semi-trailer be whatever the MnDOT certified or?
We exempt anything that's MnDOT certified. So if it's MnDOT certified, it wouldn't be needing to follow these. This would just be if it's not MnDOT certified, that it would then need to be screened.
Yeah, if it's downtown, it'd have a fence around it.
Yep, it would need to have a fence around an 8-foot fence. Or landscaping that would be 75% opaque within 2 years.
I just just had a question, you know, if they removed the wheels off the semi-trailer, would that be considered a container then?
It's without a chassis.
Pardon?
Without a chassis, so it would be sitting literally on the
Right,
ground,
yeah.
not just removing the wheels.
They'd have to
but-
take the frame off also.
Yeah, the frame part would be removed, so it'd be,
Some of them don't have a frame.
right, that would be a cargo trailer, or a cargo, but the cargo container, like you see on a,
Like a container then?
yeah, like a container.
So just as long as they have a fence around it, it would be acceptable in a C1.
If they have a fence around it, and as proposed with the addition of semi-trailer, then it would be acceptable in the C1, yes. And they would have to get a permit, but it's an unlimited amount of time when it's screened.
And just so, you know, the original intent of looking at these portable storage containers was residential, because obviously people are moving containers and stuff from, you know, maybe not Melrose, but I know a couple people elsewhere move them into their backyards and using basically a shipping container for a storage shed now. But that was the original intent, was to kind of regulate that, but it kind of blossomed into, oh, got an issue here, got an issue there. So it became more of an, we might as well address it all now. But back to residential, there is allowance for someone to have a storage container brought in, you know, it's 96 hours, no questions asked for moving and stuff like that. So that was one question I asked, because I wanted to make sure that, you know, if somebody's moving, they don't have to come up here and get a permit to have a container dropped in the driveway to load up a trailer or whatever. So I didn't catch that in the exemptions.
Yes, it's in the exemptions.
Yeah. But I think it's come a long way. It's a good working compromise from what the original one was. There's still a lot of allowances for the commercial to still operate, and I think it's a good start. It can still be edited if there's complaints or concerns with it.
I have to commend all of you, as well as the planning commission, for really working through what was a fairly restrictive document and coming up with some good compromises and talking through the issues to get it where it is today.
Fine with it, I guess. I changed it to more of being a little lenient on those, and you talk to a bunch of the other businesses, like lead stolen and stuff like that, because if we would have passed it, it would have been detrimental.
Yeah, it was a good process, I think, so thank you.
Are we feeling comfortable that we're not gonna be imposing on the business, you know, not hurting our businesses by doing this?
I don't think anyone has any issue with it as it's currently proposed that I'm aware of.
So, just so I'm clear, the residential is the way it was written before.
Yep.
C2 now is out.
C2 is able to have any amount for any length of time. We don't give any permits. However, it can't become a hazard. There's some criteria that just make sure it meets the intent of what we all want it to be.
Right.
And then if it becomes an issue, we have the ability to deal with it.
Okay.
And also, we specifically call out that we're not regulating, so it's, if we create an ordinance in the future, it's not a legal non-conforming use because it's exempt. So it can have a sunset clause, so we can create some regulations for it in the future if we need to.
Okay. And then the industrial.
Industrial is the same as the commercial, the C2.
Okay. Alright. So C1 is really the.
C1, the downtown is kind of the area that the planning commission thought was appropriate to have a little more regulations because it is smaller lots and very visible.
All right. I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have
I'll second.
a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. All right, let's see, new business.
I need the official title and summary also acted on, because I need a
Okay.
focus.
Yes.
Just get that.
Can I get a motion to
Motion to approve it as
The summary.
as the
summary
summary.
as written? Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. All right, HVAC condition assessments.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and Council, the Utility Commission commissioned basically an assessment of our facility here for our HVAC system. And we all know that the system is aged, it's 30 years old now. We've been very, very fortunate, except for the past 2 years in regards to our air conditioning unit and our heating system. The heating system now is basically, Gary, I would say, from Gary Mittendorf and I's perspective, we're having to add water, we're having to maintain and monitor that thing almost on a daily basis, which I do go down and monitor myself. In regards to the air conditioning units up on the roof, the inspector or the climate control guys, Climate Air, that maintains those things said that they're no longer supported with the R22, R6 I think it is, cooling systems that they have up there now, and the system is basically on its last leg. He said that he fixed it one last time this year, but will not be able to fix it again, those compressors up on the roof. So what the commission did is they requested to have SEH, we had 2 bids to do a full assessment of this facility, and they came up with some rough estimates in regards to what the total cost is and how we could phase this project in. And that's what's before you tonight, is a phased approach to replacing this. As you can see, it's on nearly what did I put in here? Yeah, $431,000. That's the estimate, and again, these are engineering estimates, with some margins in there to do that. But it's basically a full redo of our heating system here. Not the ductwork, but we would reduce our boilers from 6 down to 3 because we were oversized. There would have to be a modification to an R22 cooling system now because they no longer produce the oil or whatever it is for the air conditioning units, starting I think in 2020. So it's a pretty significant number, and we are not funded to this level. So what staff is recommending is that we put this into the 5-year capital plan so we can start to seriously plan for these things. But the biggest thing that's on this thing today for immediate repair and replacement would be our air conditioning units on the roof. So what we're recommending is that we place this onto the 5-year capital plan, and then also direct for the final, for the specifications now to be drawn so we can do proper bidding on this. Just because this is a governmental building and meeting the standards to do that and making sure it's a fair bid. So having said that, one other thing too, we did explore geothermal for this facility. That number came in well over $1 million. So that was just a non-starter. So we didn't even explore that after I got that rough number. So what we're asking for, one is to provide consideration to place this on the 5-year capital plan, and then the commission is at their next meeting going to be receiving a quote from SEH to do the bid specs for us and help us with the bidding for this project. So, any of your questions?
All right.
Seems like, I don't know, it seems excessive for this size building. I don't know, I don't know what the square footage is, but that's a big chunk of change, so I don't know if there's another way you can, if there's some type of calculator out there that you throw numbers in and say, hey, what should it cost to replace a HVAC system in a commercial building this size? Or do you contact an actual, like SCR, St. Cloud Refrigeration, and ask them to do an analysis? I know we spoke before the meeting, and concern was that they write the specs, then you send it out for bids, and they're bidding on their own specs. So I can kind of see that, unless they, get paid for the analysis and then don't submit a proposal or whatever. I don't know.
The rough budget number for next year that we would be proposing, again, which would be adopted during your final budgeting process and to see if we want to do this, but next year they are proposing to replace the 2 cooling systems on the roof, which would be roughly $65,000, and then they also have the condensing units and upgrading the quality units, That would go to roughly estimated at $109,000. So about $170,000 of improvements. Your fund right now has about $100,000, right, Tessa, in the fund to cover facilities. We have not been putting a lot of money away into the facilities budget just because we've been fortunate. But the council has changed that policy and started putting more money away at their previous working meetings, and so has the commission, now that we have some real numbers here for this, so.
Okay.
So this was the 431,000 was just
Everything.
one person coming in? No?
Yep,
I mean,
they did a full assessment, yep.
So we only got one opinion?
Yes.
I mean, I'm not saying that this stuff isn't bad, but I'm just saying, we go out on bids for everything for, you know, cleaning the brush up over there. I mean, we had one at 74 or whatever, 50,000, and one that came at 7. So, like, I get where Tony's saying, is 431 actually realistic, or do we need to get a second opinion just to make sure that we're not? I know HVAC stuff, we just spent over $100,000 in a room this size to cool it. So, I know it's expensive, it's super expensive, but I do get Tony's point on.
Well, and that's why we propose to go through the bidding process, you know, if these numbers come in, you know, well in excess of this number. But again, this is a government building, and it's a 30-year-old building, and we haven't had to do anything for it. And so what we're doing here is just, you have to replace the air conditioning unit in the next year. It has to get replaced. It's just not gonna last. Plus, it's no longer meets you can't get the coolant stuff anymore.
We can't just open the windows.
Actually, no, you can't. You can't crank them open. So, I mean, if you think we should go out and get another engineering assessment, we can.
But they do cost money too, though.
Yes.
This was
Yeah.
$9,000 to get that, apparently.
About, yeah. Yeah.
I think I'll make phone calls. I got a couple of people that work in the industry, so I'll just, ping them for ideas, because I don't have any other ideas.
Yeah, and we bounce it off of, we actually, on the utility commission, we got some pretty strong members on there that are in that type of field, and they both looked at this, and they were also stepped back a little bit, but again, like what council member Freeler just said, you know, the air conditioning units over at Arvig were $100,000 plus, you know, and we're actually a bigger facility, and this is a full redo of our entire network over the next, in our computer system that we have here. That system it's on the blue screen. You use the blue screen to communicate with it, and we also have valves that are failing, and it's just getting old.
So I'm assuming new systems are a lot more efficient. I mean, obviously, air conditioning systems are a lot more efficient today. But how about the heating?
That was one of the things I asked for, and I did not get back from him yet. Right now, we have our efficiency right around 82%, and our new systems would be around 96%.
Right.
So, and I asked him for the calculators, and I gave him a copy of the bills, but I never got that back before tonight's meeting. So the payback, you know, when you start looking at additional 14%, 13%.
Are there big incentives through Melrose Public Utilities?
Not on gas, no.
Okay, well, electric,
Yeah,
HVAC, or air conditioning.
yeah. So all we're doing tonight is just adopting this as a 5-year capital plan item, that we need to start planning for this. And then we, at the commission, will then seriously look at the bid specs, quotes, and then they'll make a recommendation to you at the next meeting.
All right.
I'll make that motion to
Can I,
put it in 5 years.
okay, can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion carried. Furnace and duct cleaning?
Yeah, this goes in line with that. Our city center here was built in 1990. Generally, in a commercial building, you'll see the ductwork gets cleaned once every 5 years. The city center has never been cleaned, the ductwork here. So we received 2 quotes for the cleaning of our ductwork, cleaning of the coils, and so on, and we got 2 quotes. The low bid came in at $25,000, $24,895 plus taxes. We had a second quote, came in at like $55,000. And the reason it's so expensive, it's about an 8-day clean for this size of building, And plus, this building has never been done before, and so there's no ductwork cut out either. So they have to cut out all the appropriate ductwork so they can get access panels into the facility. So we're recommending to approve this under Dustbusters of Alexandria. This is outside of our normal 5-year capital plan, but again, we didn't put any planning efforts into facility maintenance until this year. So this is an expense that we looked at back in February, March, and so we're recommending to start the process by cleaning the ductwork at least before winter.
I'm sorry I never asked a question earlier, but did you get other quotes, like local quotes? I know like Ellingson's does it, I know Finkins does it, what's the name, in Sauk Center does it?
They don't do commercial.
None of them do commercial.
We called Finkins, we called Ellingson's, and they didn't do the commercial.
Trisco doesn't do it either?
I have to double check my notes, but I sent it out to like 7 or 8 different vendors.
Okay.
Yeah, but we did reach out to.
As long as you reached out.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
I'll make a motion to.
Okay. Okay, I got a first, I got a second.
I'll second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
It's painful.
It is painful. Yeah, these are big dollars.
Ugly.
Well, that might prolong our life of something for a little bit.
Could we get a report, we'll get a report on how dirty.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, you can see just when you go into the restrooms in the hot, there's literally a film on these things. Oh, it's, yeah.
All right. City Center skylight?
Okay, yeah, here's another big one. The skylight that we have here, right in the narthex here, or annex, that you want to call it, we're seeking 2 separate quotes for this facility to replace and repair the skylight. The skylight, I go up there about once a month just to check it, and it's actually a sponge when you push onto it, and that skylight will fail here shortly. But it's good for this winter. I think we can make it through this winter. But I did finally get a quote from the original installer that built this. It's called CalWall. I got it like 2 days ago, and I'm glad you're sitting down, Tony. The quote that I got was $79,000 to replace that. So we've also reached out to Kramer's here in town to look at an alternative, which would be a blue steel roof with some type of skylight features and a finished interior with LED lighting in there as another option. So, yeah, I about fell backwards when I saw that number as well. So, but again, we just wanted to get these onto the 5-year capital plan. So what staff would recommend is that you place the skylight replacement onto the 5-year capital plan using the $80,000 number that I got. But again, we're gonna have to go through the whole bidding process, and we're gonna look at this other alternative for this replacement as well. But I wanted to get this on the plan so we can at least have something to plan for. It's probably gonna be next year though, when that starts leaking.
I really want some good quotes with keeping, the light there if possible.
Okay, you
Because
wanna
I
keep.
know that's, a lot of people compliment that. That's my opinion.
Okay.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. 3rd Avenue Northwest Mill and Overlay.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor and Council, this is an opportunity. Last year, we did a mill and overlay on 3rd Avenue. We purposely did not do this roughly 240 feet of overlay last year because we knew the county was coming, and the county was going to be doing a portion of the county road there. Having looked at this, we had the contractor that was awarded the bid for the county from Knife River to give us a quote for the remaining 240 feet. The bid came in surprisingly low. We got it today, it came in at $13,975 for the 240 linear feet that we have there. We're able to follow along with the same specs as the county, and so it meets the same standards as our road would be. So it is our staff recommendation to finish off this portion of that 3rd Street, yeah, 3rd Avenue Northwest, and to proceed and pull this out of the Fund 203 for the replacement of that portion of the road.
So how wide is that? So it's 240 feet, how wide? Gary? 36 inches? Okay.
Yep, and it's, like I said, $13,975.
This is going all the way up to Monson.
Yep, right where it finished.
Where we put the 7-inch tar that goes to Wildland Trail.
Okay. So it's not, it's on this side of the wall?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That OCI on it was about 63 back in 2015. Now it's about 50.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't like where they're pulling their trucks off that scale all the time.
That was done last year.
That was done last year.
That was done
Okay.
last year,
I was just
yeah.
gonna say,
Just
just.
up to that point.
Okay. All right, we'll make that motion.
All right, can I
I'll
get a second? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Information items, Utilities Commission meeting minutes, schools and conferences, charter communications correspondence. Unless there's anything else, can I get a motion to adjourn? Can I get a second? Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.